I think I know that you mentioned a little bit about your interest as a high school student in quantizing gravity, but for our listeners who are maybe not familiar with this whole problem of quantum gravity, I think it would be worth just glossing what it is, and then why for you it should not be thought of as a high energy problem, but a low energy problem.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, as to what the problem is, I would say it's a continuation of what, the role of physics in the history of science, I think, has been, it's played many different roles, but one that's very close to my heart and that's closely connected to the invention of science as a method for discovery in the say around 1600 or so, is this idea of unification of phenomena, that we are able to describe more and more things with fewer and fewer ingredients. So the most dramatic example, I think, to this day of that was when Newton discovered a single law of gravitational attraction that explained both how the apple falls and how the planets move around the sun. It's hard maybe for us today to appreciate just how radical that was. This was at a time when people thought of the terrestrial and the celestial spheres as being fundamentally distinct things, and the mere notion that you could come up with laws that cross between them with no effort at all and apply equally to both was mind-blowing. It was unbelievably radical revision of, humans' picture of what the world even is. It broke through that barrier and it unified, celestial and terrestrial phenomena. And a lot of the history of physics, at least the part that I always found particularly attractive, is sort of a story of sequences of these kinds of unifications. So, in the 19th century, Maxwell discovered that electricity and magnetism are like two sides of the same coin, and by describing them in a single framework, he discovered that light is electromagnetic waves. He discovered for the first time what light actually is. So that's another nice thing about unification, that once you have the new theory that can describe more things with fewer ingredients, it tends to give you entirely unexpected, radical new phenomena that you couldn't even have asked about beforehand. So you put electricity and magnetism together, you discover that there's a sort of self-reinforcing thing or propagating thing where they just keep on going, electrical and magnetic waves making each other, and you calculate how fast do these things move, and you find, they move at what we also know as the speed of light. It matches it. People had already measured how fast light moves. So suddenly you realize, that's what light is. And then let's say, special relativity at the beginning of the 20th century was Einstein's way of reconciling Maxwell's theory with Newtonian mechanics. They didn't fit together because it didn't make sense to say that light had a particular fixed speed. If you can just go to a different reference frame, then it should be faster or slower. And so he threw out space-time structure as we knew it to make sure that it always has the same speed. Then he had to reconcile that with Newton's law of gravity. He invented general relativity. This act of unification gave us totally new things. Now, the universe could be expanding. In fact, it is expanding. There's such thing as black holes. Let's go study them. So it both changes how we think about the world. Gravity is not even a force, but space and time are curved in ways that are dynamical. So this kind of stuff I always found absolutely amazing. The fact that it's sort of a combination of, a lot of tedious, sometimes not intrinsically very interesting experiments and data but hidden in those decimal places are revolutions that totally change how we think about the world and about what it is, and that but it's not some random thing. It's not something we just make up in an armchair. It's something that's forced on us by data. Quantum mechanics, of course, is an example where we're really dragged kicking and screaming to the theory. People took forever to accept it. I think some people still have difficulties with it. But yeah, it's a lot crazier than what anybody would have made up. But it's forced on us. And that's the nice thing. It's not random, but it's really wild. So what's left now, in the very big scheme of things, what we haven't been able to put together in physics is this framework of quantum mechanics with Einstein's theory of gravity. And that is sort of the remaining task of unification. That's what we call quantum gravity, that thing that we're looking for. I think it's a beautiful problem. I don't think I could have articulated that. Well, certainly when I was a beginning graduate student, I wouldn't have been distinguishing very carefully between, for example, particle theory and quantum gravity. But pretty quickly, like in my first year at Cambridge, it became clear that I was far more interested in one than in the other. As cool as it was to think about elementary particles and maybe discover some new ones, but it resonated less with me. It seemed like it was more. Yeah, it didn't quite go to the heart of where the main challenges were in understanding the laws of nature.